The government of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva completes 100 days of his third term in charge, with Brazilians' social equality at the forefront and center of his administration. The Chinese army has condemned the sailing of a U.S. destroyer through the South China Sea, increasing the tensions in the area. And also, the Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas, warned of a tough response if Israel does not halt its violent escalation. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, in this RT News. On Monday, the government of President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva completes 100 days of his third term in charge, with social equality at the forefront and center of his administration. In these first 3 months of government, Lula re-established the criteria for tackling poverty and initiated payments of $118, a program to help underprivileged families that originated in 2003. This plan aims to break the generational cycle of poverty in the short and the long term through conditional transfers of income, education, and health. Also, during the period, Lula signed the provisional measure of a program to deliver housing to needy segments that rematerializes his 2009 program to reduce the housing deficit in the country. And Lula also presented in these 100 days the program More Health for Brazil, formerly Mais Médicos, or More Doctors, which foresees the initial opening of 15,000 new vacancies for professionals in the sector. In this context, the Brazilian president will embark on Tuesday on a trip to China, Brazil's largest trading partner, for a series of diplomatic engagements. He will have an extensive agenda starting on Wednesday, including a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping to discuss new investments in Brazil. Lula seeks to repair ties between the two countries weakened during the government of former President Jair Bolsonaro. The state visit will last 4 days, as the return of the Brazilian delegation is scheduled for April 15th. The president's trip was originally scheduled to take place on March 24th, but Lula postponed the agenda due to a diagnosis of pneumonia. The Foreign Ministry of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the Free Alex Saab movement demanded once again the release of the Venezuelan diplomat held captive by the U.S. government. The Venezuelan ministry recalled that Saab was illegally kidnapped by the U.S. government in violation of its human rights and international law. For its part, the Free Alex Saab movement, an organization aimed at the defense of the Venezuelan diplomat, emphasized that Saab continues to be illegally held 5 years after his official appointment. Let's recall Alex Saab was wrongfully detained in the year 2020 as he traveled on a special mission to bring food and medicine to his people, and continues to be illegally detained in the U.S. soil. The recently issued document urges the U.S. government to return to the path of respect for international law. The government of Honduras informed on Sunday that they will intervene in the country's prisons due to recent clashes between the gang members. Through a press release, President Xiomara Castro detailed that the measure was taken after 1 death and 7 wounded in a series of altercations between gang members in 4 Honduran prisons. The president said on Monday that she will announce the appointments and the first emergency measures following the intervention. Finally, she detailed that the action will be forceful with those involved, but will respect the humanity of the defendants, their families, and defenders. On Sunday's statement, the first woman president of Honduras affirmed that she will transform the prisons of this Central American nation into rehabilitation centers and not schools of crime and torture as she inherited them. The Haitian Judicial Police announced on Monday that it is actively searching for 3 suspected arms traffickers in the high-profile case involving the Episcopal Church. The police report identifies the suspects as Fathers Fritz Desiree, Jean Mardoche Bill, and Vundla Shikumbuzo, who are suspected of arms and ammunition trafficking. Shikumbuzo, a well-known trafficker originally from Zimbabwe, served as head of operations for the church until 2018. During a raid on a place where he was hiding heading out, investigators discovered several customs exemption documents, papers on Episcopal Church of Haiti letterhead, as well as a vehicle registered in the name of the institution. The search warrant comes on the heels of a shocking report leaked last week that the Episcopal Church's customs exemption was used to smuggle weapons and ammunition into the country. Now we move on to other topics. The Colombian Geological Service keeps the orange alert in the Nevado del Ruiz volcano, despite a reduction in seismic events due to the volcanic activity. The geological authorities reported about 180 earthquakes during this Sunday morning in the Nevado del Ruiz. They warned that the number of earthquakes inside the volcano may decrease, without this meaning that there is less volcanic activity inside the volcano. For this reason, they called local residents to be attentive to the reports and indications of the disaster prevention authorities. The agency also said that as of this Monday, the number of daily earthquakes will no longer be reported, since it is no longer a relevant parameter, as are the depth and location of the seismic events in the volcano.
The activity of the Nevado del Ruiz volcano today has been characterized by an important decrease in the number of earthquakes. However, this does not mean that the volcano has returned to its normal levels of activity. On the other hand, the number of thermal anomalies at the bottom of the crater has increased and the gases have decreased, especially the water steam coming out of the crater. This indicates that the volcano is still very unstable and that it is important to be cautious and follow all the indications given by the authorities. The Geological Service will continue issuing timely and prompt information so that both the community and the decision makers will have this information readily available.
In Ecuador, the death toll from a landslide occurred March 26 in Alausi has jumped to 35. On Sunday, Army rescue teams still on site recovered the bodies of 2 women. According to authorities, 50 other people are still presumed to be buried under tons of mud and rubble, so the number of fatalities is expected to increase. Official data indicates that the March 26 landslide left more than 1,000 victims, 163 houses affected, and 55 others completely destroyed. On a positive note, in Australia, more than 90 endangered baby loggerhead sea turtles have been returned to the wild on the central coast of New South Wales after their nest was excavated more than a week ago. 130 eggs were retrieved from the excavated nest on Shelley Beach, just north of Sydney, as late March after temperatures in the sand fell below the survival threshold. They were transported to Taronga Zoo in incubators from monitoring, and dozens have successfully hatched since the excavation. As of Monday, 93 of the baby turtles have been returned to the wild on Easter Sunday evening. Hundreds of people watched the process. Around 20 more are expected to be released into the sea in the next few days. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news, updates and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Monday, in the UK, people protested in the city of Londonderry in Northern Ireland on the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, as the US President Joe Biden prepares to fly in. The police called for calm after their officers reported an attack against agents in the Cregan area of Northern Ireland's second-largest city. The event comes ahead of the President Biden's arrival in Northern Ireland on April 11th as part of celebrations to commemorate the peace deal signed in April 1998. Last month, the terror threat level in Northern Ireland was raised as a consequence of the political crisis that continues in Northern Ireland, in the territory, with the Democratic Unionist Party refusing to re-share power at Stormont as part of its protests against post-Brexit trade deals. Northern Ireland Secretary Chris Heaton Harris has warned of the fragility of the peace in the territory in the framework of Joe Biden's visit. French rescue services have found a sixth body following an avalanche southwest of Mont Blanc in the French Alps and have now called off their search, as local authorities said on Monday. The avalanche occurred in the middle of the day on Sunday in the Armenzet Glacier, which is near the village of ski resort of Les Condemns, Montjoie. According to Emmanuel Conquad, the spokesperson for the authorities in the Haute-Savoie region, the rescue team concluded their search because they know of no other missing persons. Local media said 2 of the victims were mountain guides and the other 4 were their clients, all French, including a young woman and a man in their 20s and a couple in their 40s. On Monday, China's government announced the addition of the aircraft carrier Shandong to the combat readiness patrols and military exercises of the People's Liberation Army of China around the island of Taiwan. The 315-meter-long ship was involved along with 36 operational J-15 fighter jets on its deck, the China Joint Operations Command announced. In this way, the Chinese-made vessel joins the operation launched last April the 8th, which includes 70 aircraft and 11 Chinese warships. According to the command, these operations serve as a stern warning against collusion between separatist forces seeking Taiwan's independence, external forces, and their provocative activities in pursuit of safeguarding China's national sovereignty and the territorial integrity. The United States government announced on Monday that a destroyer missile launcher is sailing in the waters near some islands in the South China Sea. The news comes amid escalating tensions over high-intensity Chinese military maneuvers circumventing Taiwan. According to a statement released by the U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet, the Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer USS Milius navigates close to the Spratly Islands, which China disputes with the Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Brunei. The U.S. statement adds that illegitimate claims in the South Chinese Sea pose a serious threat to freedom of navigation, in a veiled reference to Beijing. U.S. announced comes as China holds wide-ranging military exercises around Taiwan. And the Chinese army has condemned the sailing of a U.S. destroyer through the South China Sea, increasing tensions in the area. In a statement, China's Air Force spokesperson for the Southern Theater Command, Colonel Tian Junli, said that on April the 10th, the USS Milius, a guided missile destroyer, illegally entered the waters adjacent to the Meiji Reef in the Chinese Mancha Islands without permission from the Chinese government. The colonel said that China has undisputed sovereignty over the South Sea Islands and their adjacent waters, and that Chinese troops maintain a constant high level of alertness and that they resolutely safeguard national sovereignty and security, as well as peace and stability in the South Sea. And Japan's ruling party, led by Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, won in local elections held in Japan on Sunday. On April 23rd, another round of local elections will be held to elect the mayors and members of local assemblies in other Japanese prefectures, as well as 5 vacant seats in the national parliament. The results of Kishida's ruling Liberal Democratic Party in these local elections serve as a thermometer of support for his government, which began the year with an all-time low in popular support at around 26%, according to various polls. Support for Kishida's cabinet has improved in recent weeks thanks to the recent diplomatic activity of the Prime Minister, who will chair the G7 summit in Hiroshima next May, as well as to several initiatives presented by the executive, including a plan to support the birth rate. And on Monday, Japan's new central bank chief, Kazuo Ueda, announced that no major rate hikes were on the horizon, and that a long-standing loose monetary policy remains appropriate. On Sunday, Kazuo Ueda replaced Haruhiko Kuroda, the bank's longest-serving governor and the architect of a monetary policy aimed at boosting the world's third-largest economy. Ueda takes the reins of Japan's central bank under pressure to join his international counterparts who have raised rates to tackle inflation. However, he has made it clear that there will be no immediate change to the current bank's approach. Prices in the country have risen by as much as 4% in recent months, although in February inflation showed a minor decrease as prices were up only 3.1% on a year-on-year comparison. In this regard, the bank has stated that the current price rises are largely transitory and the result of the temporary factors such as the Ukrainian crisis and the energy price increases. And thousands of novice monks took part in a mass ordination ceremony at the Wat Phra Dhammanaya temple in Bangkok. Over 5,000 young Buddhist monks prayed outside the temple during the event, dressed in white robes and carrying orange pillows. The ceremony began with a ritual which sees novice monks from all over the country circling the temple in long orderly lines to be ordained by the Buddha. The monks were also seen meditating inside the massive temple, which is located 16 kilometers north of Bangkok. In Buddhist culture, ordination ceremonies are held to welcome young men and women as full members of the monastic order. TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries using StarSat. Dial 461 and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas, warned of a tough response if Israel does not halt its crimes. In this regard, the Palestinian National Authority denounced the relentless attacks of the Tel Aviv occupation forces against the Palestinian holy sites. They expressed that the resistance will continue to defend the Palestinian identity and lands at all cost. In this way, condemnation against the Israeli regime continued after the assault on the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the forcible eviction of dozens of Palestinian worshippers in the middle of Ramadan. Finally, Hamas reiterated that the liberation of occupied Jerusalem is the key focus of the resistance and emphasized it will defend the Palestinian nation against the attacks of the occupation forces. Several hundred Iraqi Kurds protested against repeated Turkish military bombardments of the region 2 days after an attack near the Sulaymaniyah airport. Around 400 protesters walked in the center of Sulaymaniyah, the second city in Iraq's autonomous Kurdistan region. They waved the flag of Iraqi Kurdistan and held a banner denouncing the airport bombardment as a terrorist act. The protests came after Iraqi President Abdel Latif Rashid on Saturday condemned the bombardment in the Kurdistan region and accused Turkey's military for these operations. The attack on Friday caused an explosion near the airport wall while the commander of the Syrian Democratic Forces was present. Worshippers in Tehran kept vigil and prayed late at night to mark the Night of Qadar. Also referred to as the Night of Power or Laylat ul-Qadar, the vigil falls within the final 10 days of the month of Ramadan. Muslims believe this was the night God sent the angel Gabriel to the Prophet to reveal the first verses of the Quran. Shiite Muslims keep vigil at nights preceding the 9th, 21st, and 23rd days of Ramadan as Qadar nights to pray and recite the Quran. Worshippers were also provided with free meals and tea as the meal before dawn ahead of a day of fasting. Ramadan culminates in Laylat al-Qadr, on the night of destiny, during the last 10 nights of the month, when Muslims engage in intense late night worship.
My wish is that people get the life they deserve. I see people in need. I feel pity for them. I wish everyone gets a certain level of well-being and lead a peaceful life.
In Yemen, after holding a meeting with delegations from Oman and Saudi Arabia, the Supreme Political Council has restated its firm stance on aspirations to peace and independence. At the meeting, the head of the Yemeni Supreme Council, Mahdi al-Mashad, expressed gratitude on behalf of the Yemeni people for the mediation efforts of the Sultanate of Oman for its positive role in bringing points of view closer. Houthi sources close to the negotiations said that the talks focus on lifting the blockade on the Hodeidah port and Zana airport. Meanwhile, there was no immediate comment from Saudi Arabia on the trip, the second organized so far this year. The talks in Zana, primarily aimed at reaching a ceasefire, are part of international efforts led by Oman to resolve the conflict in Yemen and began in 2014. Now we move on to other topics. Indian states of Haryana, Kerala and Puducherry have made wearing masks mandatory in public places amid the rise in coronavirus cases in the country. According to local authorities in Puducherry, the guidelines will be applicable all across the Union territory, while Haryana has made masks mandatory at gatherings of more than 100 people. For their part, Kerala officials stated that masks are mandatory for pregnant women, the elderly and people with life-threatening diseases. According to data from the Union Health Ministry on Sunday, India recorded more than 5,000 cases of COVID-19 within the previous 24 hours, while 9 fatalities were reported on Saturday. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.